So before we begin, I'm sure if you've been subscribed to the channel for any real length of time, you know that I am a giant fan of the horror franchise Saw. And just because this series is supposed to be about whatever I want to talk about in any given week, that doesn't mean that I won't use it to discuss things that I would otherwise cover beyond this particular series. However, with that being said, I've been thinking a lot about the upcoming sequel to the long-running horror franchise that, if reporting is to be believed, is going to be entitled Spiral from the Book of Jigsaw. What the hell is going on with this series? Look, at the time of recording this and writing the script, we just simply don't know if that's going to be the title. So, depending on when you're watching this, you might want to go back and see when it was posted before you make your comments. Seriously, people, make sure to check the date before you post any comments. God damn. You know, if it was me, I would have gone with something more akin to Saw Rebirth, or maybe even Saw Legacy. And even if they really wanted to do something mysterious, maybe go with something, well, I don't know, the organ donor? I mean, hell, you could have even kept From the Book of Jigsaw as a subtitle if you really wanted to, because, that kind of sounds cool. But honestly, it does kind of remind me of those terribly aged Twilight and Hunger Games sequel banner titles. Who released those again? Oh, yeah. Nevertheless, no matter how great or terrible the end product might ultimately be, I did want to take today to talk about an idea that is kind of starting to pique my interest a bit when it comes to the next Saw film. Who is this organ donor character that's being kind of promoted with all of the production stills? And I guess even more theoretically, what is the quote-unquote Book of Jigsaw in the subtitle, and what does it have to do with the entire movie? I mean, take this a little bit seriously. If you throw away the obvious twist bait of all of it, the obvious implication of this is that the world of Jigsaw being filled with other creepy serial killers who may or may not have some connection or even inspiration from John Jigsaw Kramer makes Saw 9 far more interesting of a film than it otherwise should be. And you know what? Just give me a little time to explain this. In this day and age, it's really no secret that serialized horror film franchises tend to become a little formulaic as time goes on. And honestly, it's not even hard to see why. Because as you get further and further along, the killer becomes the de facto main character of the series by virtue of either killing off all of the would-be protagonists or simply being the most consistently popular thing about the entire series. And usually, it's a little bit of both. And because of this, the series has to jump through various creative loopholes in order to keep the main villain within the spotlight. And this leads to some pretty interesting story decisions in order to keep the antagonist alive and well for the next film. That's what gave us a Frankenstein Jason. It's what gave us the Thorn Cult in the Halloween franchise. It's what kept Play Pals in business all those years. And it's even what's dictated the incessant flashbacks in the Saw franchise itself. Because having your most popular character in each and every single one of your sequels is an absolute must. You need to get people in their seats. But this is why the organ donor tease is really starting to grab my attention. This isn't a Saw Legacy subtitle sequelization, and it certainly isn't a Jigsaw level assertion that promises that no matter what, you know what you're going to get. It's going to be what you know and what you remember, if nothing else. But instead, this possible title seems to be indicating something, or maybe even someone completely new to the series is about to make some kind of grand introduction. And even more so, we know that the 9th film in this long-running franchise is in fact set within the timeline and continuity of the previous 8. And to me, there is definitely something intriguing about that, as it seemingly implies an expansion of the Saw universe to encompass more than just the deranged machinations of a psycho with an OCD for planning. If nothing else, this seems like the meta answer to the question posed in the latest Halloween movie, that in a realistic world, who cares about the action of one person or maybe just one group of people when there is just so much else going on that's worse in our day-to-day lives. But unlike the 11th Halloween film that severed the most interesting bits from the previous 9 films before burying what it didn't want, or even Hellraiser shambling on the same old tired formula with periodic straight-to-DVD sequels, or Scream retreading tired jokes from a less sophisticated time of horror, or even Freddy and Jason being regulated to production hell for lack of even inspiration on what to do with their characters, and pretty much every single other horror icon that you can think of, save for the OG Chucky series, that every single one of them from the past 40 years has been languishing in their own creative shortcomings as the rest of the genre moves on without them. So when it looks like the Saw franchise is attempting to answer the question of its own longevity by expanding the universe that was established in the first 8 films and introducing audiences to stories and characters that might have the ability to capture our attention again after so long of languishing in mediocrity, and trying to do so without having to carry all of the baggage that the series has built over the course of several different sequels, a lot of which the audience did not like. You have to admit that there is something inherently more interesting about that, and it's one of the reasons I am fairly ecstatic to see this new film. Now, I guess it is really important to say that we do not know how this film is going to end up. Whether it's good or bad cannot be discussed at this point. We're going to have to wait until May of this year. But as I see it, and as I said at the very beginning of the video, I am a fan of this series. I am willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, at least for now. And I hope beyond hope that it doesn't disappoint me in the long run. But either way, that's my take.